This is News Bits on Fuxion TV. Here are the headlines. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi and others to be tried by video link in Libya. Violence in Nigeria, more than 70 killed in Abuja bus station blast. Grenada concludes 21.9 million IMF deal. Guinea-Bissau presidential elections go to runoff. Hundreds of students abducted from a high school in northeastern Nigeria. World Health Organization says Ebola death toll rises to 135. These and more when we return. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a minute. Hello and thanks for joining us on this edition of News Bits. I'm Nikki Roberts. A Libyan court ruled Monday that the late Colonel Gaddafi's son and other Gaddafi officials being held outside Tripoli can be tried via video link. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi and 36 former officials face a mass trial for their alleged role in trying to repress Libya's 2011 uprising. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi and Libya's former military intelligence chief, Abdullah al-Sanusi, also on trial, have been separately indicted by the International Criminal Court ICC on war crimes charges. The video link decision, however, only relates to the domestic case. The ICC ruled last year that Libya was able and willing to prosecute Mr. al-Sanusi, but demands the transfer of Mr. Gaddafi to The Hague. Saif Gaddafi is being held in the city of Zintan by the militia that captured him. The country's many militia remain largely out of the control of central government, and high-value prisoners are sometimes seen as valuable bargaining chips. The court session on Monday was mostly procedural and was adjourned until April 27th because only 23 of the 36 defendants were present. At the hearing, complaints by some of the lawyers were discussed, and it was mostly that they did not have access to the case files. The prosecution has denied this claim. Some lawyers, family members, and members of the press were turned away at the gate by court police. More than 70 people were killed in a bomb blast Monday at a crowded bus station on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The explosion happened as commuters were about to board buses and taxis to go to work in central Abuja. It was immediately suspected that Boko Haram Islamist militant group had staged the attack in Abuja, even though most of its attacks have been in the northeast of the country. Officials earlier said 2 separate blasts had ripped through the terminal, but later said the damage may have been caused by just one bomb with secondary explosions as vehicle fuel tanks ignited and burned. Head of the Abuja Emergency Relief Agency so far confirmed 71 people dead and 124 injured. Investigators believe the explosives may have been inside a vehicle. The blast ripped a 4-foot deep hole in the ground of Nyanya Motor Park about 10 miles from the city center and destroyed more than 30 vehicles. Emergency vehicles transported the dead and injured to nearby hospitals. In a statement, the police said they were on red alert and had increased surveillance at all vulnerable targets within Abuja. President Goodluck Jonathan visited the scene and blamed Boko Haram, the Islamic extremist group which operates in the northeast of the country and which has been threatening to attack Nigeria's capital. In a related incident, about 120 girls are thought to have been abducted from a school in northeast Nigeria. Gunmen reportedly arrived at the school in Chibok, Borno State, and ordered the hostel's teenage residents onto trucks. Once again, the attackers are believed to be from the Islamist group Boko Haram, whose militants frequently target schools. Boko Haram, whose name means Western education is forbidden, has been waging an armed campaign for an Islamic state in northern Nigeria. Borno State Governor Kashim Shettima, in a statement, confirmed that reports from parents and guardians of children missing so far totaled about 100 students, although this might not be the final figure. Shettima said at least 15 girls had managed to escape to reach safety. Reportedly, some of the vehicles used in transporting the abducted girls developed faults, and about 15 girls were able to escape. The school principal, Asabe Kwambura, also confirms this and maintains that there is no truth to the claim of the military of freeing 120 girls. The exact number of abducted students is yet to be established. Nigerian police and army patrols on Wednesday scoured the bush and hills around Chibok for the missing girls. With elections due in February, President Jonathan is under intense pressure to contain the Boko Haram insurgency in this region of the country. And this also badly tarnishes the West African state's newly acquired status as the largest economy on the continent. The Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell, recently concluded talks with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank in Washington. The IMF had reached an agreement in principle with the government of Grenada for a 3-year, $21.9 million extended credit facility to support an ambitious program to correct the island's fiscal imbalances and lift sustainable growth. As a result of the IMF agreement, the government has said it would also be able to secure an additional $100 million soft loan and graft funding from regional and international lending agencies. Mitchell described his meetings in Washington as highly successful and said that the IMF had welcomed Grenada's structural adjustment program. Dr. Mitchell reportedly told reporters that the IMF had indicated its desire to meet and approve the package early in May, saying that he would like to see the resources start flowing before the end of May. Presidential and parliamentary elections concluded Sunday in Guinea-Bissau, leading to a runoff. This comes approximately 2 years after the last coup in 2011. José Mario Vaz, a former finance minister from the main PAIGC party, secured just over 40%, while Nuno Gomes Nabiam, the former chair of Bissau's Civil Aviation Agency, who ran as an independent, secured 25% of total votes. Paulo Gomes, a former World Bank executive and newcomer to Bissau politics, came third with just under 10%. Now, with no candidate securing an outright victory, the presidential runoff will be held on May 18th between Vaz and Nabiam. Nabiam comes from the Balanta ethnic group and is seen as having the support of the army, which has long had a history of interfering in politics. More than 80% of the electorate turned out to choose from 13 presidential candidates and 15 parties presenting candidates for parliament. Results from the parliamentary vote showed that the PAIGC won a majority, securing 55 of the 100 available seats. The PRS, PAIGC's traditional rival, came second with 41 seats. With few resources other than cashew nuts and fish, South American drug cartels have turned the country into a cocaine trafficking hub. Jose Ramos Horta, UN Special Representative in Guinea-Bissau, has said that if these results are well managed by the leaders of the two main political parties, it will ensure that Guinea-Bissau has finally the stability that is essential for structural reforms in all sectors. The World Health Organization says the death toll from the Ebola outbreak in West Africa has risen to at least 135. In a statement Thursday, the World Health Organization said Guinea's health ministry had reported a total of 122 deaths, while 13 deaths had been reported by Liberian health officials. The statement further said officials are investigating more than 200 suspected or confirmed cases of the virus in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. 6 suspected cases in Mali tested negative, and no new suspected cases have been reported. This is the first major outbreak of Ebola in West Africa. Authorities say it began in a forested southeastern region of Guinea in February. The Ebola virus is spread by contact with bodily fluids, and it causes symptoms that include vomiting, unstoppable bleeding, and organ failure. Algerians went to the polls Thursday to decide who will govern the country for the next 5 years. Ailing President Abdelaziz Bouteflika seeks a 4th term. Bouteflika cast his vote from a wheelchair as journalists and well-wishers looked on. Bouteflika, who suffered a stroke last year, appeared alert but weak. Turnout throughout the day in Algiers, the capital city, appeared to be fairly light, with older people voting in numbers and the young, who make up a majority of the population, largely staying away. A few hours before polls closed, the government reported a nationwide turnout of just 37%. the leading opposition candidate, former Prime Minister Ali Ben Fliss, spoke with journalists after voting, saying he hopes to rejuvenate the country if he is elected. But he warned that there could be trouble if there is cheating during the vote count. He added, however, that he opposes any form of violence. 6 candidates, including former Prime Minister Ali Ben Fliss, are competing to be the country's president for the next 5 years. Incumbent President Bouteflika has held the office since 1999. He was Algeria's youngest foreign minister and is the last of a generation of leaders who came to power after independence from France in 1962. Rebels have once again seized Bentiu, the capital of Union State in South Sudan. Union State is the country's oil hub and is a major source of foreign exchange income for South Sudan. Russia and China, along with other countries, are major investors in South Sudan's oil economy. The rebels initially took control of Bentiu right after the conflict started in December, but were forced out by government forces in January. Since the conflict started, oil production in South Sudan has dropped by 20%. Military forces deny that the oil hub has been seized and insist that they are still fighting it out with the rebels. Brigadier General Lol Ruai, spokesperson for the rebels, issued a shutdown warning to firms in order to avert forced oil shutdown and to ensure the safety of their employees. Both sides of the conflict signed a ceasefire in January, but both keep accusing the opposition of violating the contract. According to the UN report released last month, over 1 million people have been displaced by the conflict. Over 800,000 have taken refuge within the country, and another 254,000 have fled to neighboring countries. South Sudan has been unstable since its independence in 2011. More news bits when we return. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a moment. A ferry carrying 475 people, most of whom were students of Danwon High School in Ansan, near Seoul, South Korea, capsized and sank in the South Korean Ocean on Wednesday. The ferry left the port of Incheon in the northwest and was headed to the southern resort island of Jeju. It was not immediately clear what had caused the ferry to capsize just 3 hours short of its destination. State media reported that only 2 of the life rafts that were deployed. A crew member, helmsman Oh Young-sok, reportedly stated that he did not recall a message on the public address system calling for an evacuation, and by the time the ferry listed, it was impossible for crew members to move to the passengers' rooms to help them. Rescue efforts have been underway but have been hampered by bad weather. 25 people have been confirmed dead, but the death toll is expected to rise. 179 people were rescued, including the captain, Lee Jun-sok, who commented briefly on TV saying, "I am really sorry and deeply ashamed. I don't know what to say." Almost 300 people were still reported missing as of Friday. The water temperature in the area is about 54 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to cause signs of hypothermia after about 90 minutes of exposure. Relatives of the passengers remain close by the site, desperately hoping for word on their loved ones trapped in the ferry. The suspect in the shooting and killing of 3 people outside a Jewish community center and a retirement home in a Kansas City suburb, 73-year-old Frazier Glenn Cross Jr. from Missouri, is facing murder charges. Also known as avowed white supremacist Glenn Miller, Cross is being held on a $10 million bond on a charge of capital murder and premeditated first-degree murder for the killings on the eve of the Jewish Passover holiday. Cross appeared in court Tuesday and was charged with capital murder and murder in the first degree. The capital murder charge is for the killing of Rich Griffin Underwood and his grandfather, William Lewis Corporon. The first-degree murder is for the killing of Terry Lamarno. Religious leaders gathered Thursday at a Kansas Jewish community center for a memorial service in honor of the 3 people killed. Several hundred people crowded into the center's auditorium for the interfaith service. Speaking at the memorial, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder called the killings unspeakable acts of violence. He further said these acts cannot be ignored and that we are united in our condemnation of this heinous attack and our commitment to seeing that justice is served. If convicted of capital murder, Cross faces the death penalty. Thousands of people gathered at a Boston Convention Center Tuesday to mark the first anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombings. Vice President Joe Biden, Massachusetts Governor Patrick Deval, Boston Mayor Martin Walsh, and former Mayor Tom Menino all spoke at the event. The message for the event, United We Persevere, was posted on the state's Twitter feed on Tuesday. At 2:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the time the first bomb went off, the city observed a moment of silence. After that, churches throughout Boston tolled their bells, and ships in the city's harbor sounded their horns. The bombings on Patriots' Day in 2013 killed 3 people and injured 264 people. This year's Boston Marathon, set for April 21st, will take place under heightened security with about 36,000 runners and tens of thousands of expected spectators facing new restrictions, including bans on carrying backpacks into the race corridor. Authorities say the bombers carried their bombs to the finish line in backpacks. The bombers were identified as ethnic Chechen brothers Tamerlan Tsarnaev and Zhoka Tsarnaev. 3 days after the attack, the bombers attempted to escape. Tamerlan was killed in the gun battle that ensued, while Zhoka was arrested and is now awaiting trial with the possibility of execution if convicted on these charges. Christians all over the world will observe Easter this weekend, starting with the celebration of Good Friday. Christians in the Holy Land have commemorated the crucifixion of Jesus Christ with prayers and processions through Jerusalem's Old City. Pope Francis washed the feet of a dozen elderly and disabled people, including a Libyan Muslim, during an Easter ritual in Rome on Thursday, imitating the humility of Jesus Christ. All these will culminate on Sunday with Easter Mass and celebrations of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The Easter holiday and Jewish Passover coincide this year. Now, have you ever wondered why the number 420 is significant to marijuana smokers? The answer when we return. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a moment. On Sunday, 420, pot smokers will gather all over the U.S. to mark what has become a hallowed date in their calendar. The 420 celebration has become popular in the last few years, but its origin appeared to lie in the escapades of a group of friends from San Rafael High School in Northern California from 1971. The friends, who called themselves the Waldos because they used to hang out by a wall, met after school at 4:20 p.m. and drove off on their treasure hunt, supposedly trying to locate a marijuana crop, which was never found. The group began using the term 420, so did friends and acquaintances. The term 420 serves as a code, and pot smokers tend to spot it everywhere. Now get this. After the 420-mile marker on the Interstate 70 highway in Colorado was repeatedly stolen, officials replaced it with a 419.99-mile sign. How's that for creativity? Well, that's all the news bits we have for you today on Fuxion TV. We'll see you again next time. Until then, stay safe. And happy Passover and happy Easter to all our viewers all over the world. Thanks for watching.